here today to walk you through the Norman, Saxon and Byzantine world. We hope you enjoy your time here today and you enjoy us running through the entirety of our history. I'd like to start down the far end over here with someone that's travelled a very long way over from Constantinople. We have a Greek, ladies and gentlemen. He's a Byzantine soldier, he's Christian. That does not stop us going on crusade against them in the 4th century, in the 4th crusade. He looks a bit different to everyone else here today. He's wearing as a fabric cotton. You're not going to see that again. His boots go up to his knees. These are more practical, they're a bit more defensive. Because you'll notice he's not wearing anything underneath. He's got no hose, he's got no trousers. On top, he's got himself something that looks similar to a tunic, but it's made out of cotton. It's a lot easier to get over in Byzantine because it's where cotton is more often grown. But it's easier for air to go through, keeping him nice and cool in the Constantinople weather. On his head, he's got a turban. This keeps him cool in the heat, and it's also a nice, fashionable item to show him how much more cotton he's able to get on him. He is quite an average soldier here today, so I hope you enjoy watching him die later in our battles.
Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have for you the hospitaliers, if they would come forward. Now this menacing lot with their black fabric of wools and linens with their hoods up, they are monks of a kind. Unlike the standard monks you find in your monasteries in England, however, they have a little trick up their sleeve, or in their scabbards. That's right, they go out into the Holy Land, spread the word of Christ through fighting. They fight a lot. And unlike the standard monk, they signify themselves through the white cross they have emblazoned on their cloaks, on their tunics. So these are our fighting men of Christ. They would go out on crusade and they would spread the word through there with their swords.
One more person before we hit over into our beautiful English land. We've got a Scot here today. He is wearing, again, items of clothing you'll see nowhere else in our lineup. On his head, he's got a brat. No, a fowlin. Ballet, there we go. So sorry, I don't talk to the Scots much as a good Norman lady myself. It's longer than a normal hood. It's to keep him dry in the Scottish weather. Over his shoulders, he does have a brat. This fabric is made out of 2 different colours, makes it into a grid pattern. It's loose, so he can wear it over his head as well, keeping him nice and warm and nice and dry. He's not wearing wool, however, on his tunic. Instead, he's got it as linen. Dries fast, which is important in the Scottish weather. You will notice again, ladies and gentlemen, now if you have a delicate disposition, don't look. His knees are out. He's not wearing hose, he's not wearing trousers. He's got them nice and bare with just his shoes on underneath. Overall, our Scottish peasant today is wearing something that's practical, warm, and will help keep him dry, or at least dry off a bit faster. Thank you so much.
Back into the clerical side after our hospitaliers, we've got for you our first Norman individual. We've got a priest. Now this is our priest in training, and they're wearing an interesting piece of clothing that we call an alb. So we'll turn towards, as you can see, this beautiful design on the alb shows this person's got more fabric for the punch. The more fabric someone's wearing, they've got a bit more cash, they've got a bit more status, and a priest would be at the centre of a Norman community. The sleeves, it's almost like if they put both their arms up, they could take off in flight. This is specific to the alb of the long sleeve at the armpit into the tapered end. They're wearing natural linen. It's not bleached, it's quite cheap, easy to come by, and it signifies, as well as with their rope cincture, the vow of poverty they've taken as being part of the church. However, as they get a bit higher as a priest, they tend to get a little bit more money, a bit more land, a bit of a nicer church, so I imagine this kit may be getting a bit fancier in the years to come. They have some standard tools on their belt for everyday use, an eating knife and a pouch to keep small accoutrements and maybe some to give to the poor, a little bit of money, a little bit of food. Thanks very much.
Now we're going to meet the vast majority of English society. We have our peasants. These made up more than any other group. So out of all of you guys, yeah, I think you would all be peasants as well. So sorry. Doesn't mean we're going to hit now into stuff you're going to see the evolution of into the rest of our tiers. So let's start off with the basics. Our men here are wearing tunics. This is an overgarment. For these guys, it's made out of wool. Wool's warm, it's a bit waterproof, it's a bit fire retardant, nice and practical. Underneath, he's got a linen under tunic to stop it itching, something closer to the skin. But you'll notice that again, it is unbleached. It's plain old natural linen, nice and cheap, easier to come by. Our woman, however, is wearing a nice woolen dress. With the same practical uses as the tunic and a linen underdress, again for the same uses as an linen under tunic. You'll notice something different with all their headwear. It's nice and Christian to cover the top of your head, but not exactly mandatory, at least for the men. Our woman here today is wearing something called a wimple. Veiling your head was both a manner of your Christianity and of just being a good person. So she's covered the top of her head, her ears and her neck with a nice piece of natural linen. You'll notice these guys here, however, have stuff like coifs, or a hat, or a Fijian cap, or a straw hat. All of these options are nice, fashionable and practical choices. You'll notice that they've got belts on. These belts are now made of leather, that they are undyed and short. Some of them have a little bit of tooling on if they're feeling a little bit fancier. The last thing I want to draw your attention to is the tools they're holding. You'll notice that these are all farming implements. You've got shovels, you've got a shear for a shepherd, you've got a scythe. And I want to note that yes, the woman is also out in the fields farming. She is just as involved into the agriculture as the men would be.
It's a step up from your lowest peasantry. We've got, again, peasants, but they're a little bit up in the world. They have trade. Come forward. As you can see, compared to our earlier peasants, their general look about them, they're a bit brighter. The colours they're wearing are a little bit nicer. We've got this lovely bright yellow, the nice sky blue, and signifier of a little bit of a jump in wealth. As we see on the two gentlemen at the end, if they put their sleeves out for me, we can see they've got lovely bands around the cuffs of their tunic with embroidery alongside. If you would show me your tools of the trade, we have two musicians. Got one, the drummer, and one, a very early version of something that looks a little bit like a violin, call it a rebec. They would go round, they would play music, they may earn a bit of coin for their tunes. We have an embroiderer. So, people would pay to have embroidery on their clothes. If someone was a little bit richer, they had a bit less time, other things they want to do, perhaps they would commission someone lower to do their embroidery for them. It's a very time-heavy career, and peasants had a lot of time. On the end, just a general craftsman. Maybe he's a leather worker who tools belts, who tools knife sheaths. He could be a woodworker, he could be making tables, he could be making chairs, maybe small toys for children, though lots of wooden toys for children, materials. We've also got, as well as the mix of colours, the belts are starting to get a little bit longer, not too long, but the leather, the cut of leather they have for their belts, getting a bit bigger, a signifier of wealth. Basically, Normans would wear their money, and we can see that here.
Well, let's talk about wearing our money and get to the next step in the world. You've got a bit more cash, you've got a bit more fans. Let's bring our merchant and our servant forward. These guys here are still common people, but they're independently wealthy. I want to note first that we've got brighter colours, deeper dyes. These mean that they have to be dyed more often and with more of it, more and more expensive. If you show your cloak, you will see that we've got different colours between the items of clothing. The more clashing your colours, the less they went, the price they were. the more fashionable. I want to note, however, that our good servant here is wearing linen as an overgarment. Linen is more expensive than wool because it requires a field to grow it in, a field you could have been growing food in. So to be able to afford linen as an overgarment is again a sign of wealth. And that he's dyed it, even better. You'll notice that his cross and on his... I've lost the word.
Right?
Yeah, why not? We've got metal coming in. We're very material poor in the 12th century. So having metal on you is a sign of your wealth again. He's got it as a cross because he's a good Christian man and wants to show off to everyone else how trustworthy he is, how good he is. And surely he'd want to do a deal with a man like this. Down here, we start to get keys on belts. Keys would be something to unlock either a house or a box of really important items. A box, for example, such as a spice box. Again, signified by its wealth by being made out of carved ivory. Imported, expensive, just to show off how expensive the stuff inside it is. We've got embroidery again coming in on the cuffs, just to show off a little bit more, and on his hat we have some embroidery. We're going to get that wealth in wherever we can. We want to show off. We want to... How fancy you can be. Thank you very much.
Now, stepping up even further into the world, but not as high as me, we've got the lower nobility. So, my fellow host here, and this gentleman here, reflect that very neatly. Again, colours get brighter, they get deeper, they get more varied, and the more they clash, the more fashionable you are. I want to point something out on the lady on the end. She is not wearing a wimple. She's wearing something a little bit more fashionable, called a veil. Unlike the wimples in the back, it does not cover the chin, which is a little bit scandalous, but don't worry guys, Eleanor of Aquitaine wears it, so I think we're fine. And on that veil, her wimple pins that hold that in, there's a gem on there. There is a gemstone. Again, another signifier, but thank you very much. We've also got rosary beads on the belt. This is a pious woman of Christ. The dress is a lovely red, and the embroidery on the end is unlike the embroidery on my sleeve, because that is tablet weaving, which is a slightly different way to get more and more fabric on you.
That's a lamb's leg. That's been seasoned with oil and garlic and salt and pepper and all sorts of little things. And then we're going to fry that.
Keeps the sausages going.
Oh. We're going to cook it on the fire.
Do it up proud though.
No, unfortunately not. This is our stuff.
No. Do you mind if I take a photo?
Go for it. Yeah. I'm just doing my shoelace at the moment.
That's alright, you look busy. Thanks very much.
Look quick, busy boss is coming.
Speaking of how good you are, beautiful imported food.
I didn't oil the bowl.
What's
the cheeses
So that's marzipan.
Oh, is it?
firmly adhered to.
Imported, very expensive. We wouldn't have had that in England unless you were a very well-respected and well-off lord.
It's the advantages. It's advantage of our current excursions over to Byzantium.
Yes, Byzantine Empire.
What was that? Pita bread with
This is hummus.
hummus.
Yes, again imported.
And is that white butter? What is this?
So this is different types of cheeses. These would all be from around here. We would be eating them. There was also brie, cheddars, crumbly cheeses, goat, sheep, but they are all, we had those. Cheese was very common because you could keep the goat alive and get cheese over and over and
They
over.
like the cattle as well. It's just meat, it's cheese.
You wouldn't usually kill a cow or a goat.
Too important, too valuable.
You would kill them only when they were done giving milk. And then they would have fairly tough meat. Only if you were lord would you have veal or lamb, anything anything young, yes, venison.
Can I
Well,
see
I would be
the-
hunting their venison for them.
We did.
Can I see
We did, but they're all gone.
arrows?
Right, they're all gone for now.
You see the
The
arrows?
sausages tend to go
Yeah,
fairly
recording from
quickly.
my...
Right,
Joey, would you show your arrows?
if you hang around by the...
Show my arrows. Yes, sorry. Interrupted.
Yeah, just
Right.
be on the ball.
Are they the real one or?
Yeah, they're real ones. The tips of them are rubber, just because we do shoot them at each other, so to keep each other safe. The tips are rubber, but I do also have a metal tip in
Does
here.
this go on top?
Sorry?
Where is the main? Is that going on top?
Yes, so that goes on the bowstring. If you want to have a look at archery or maybe try some, there is a have a go archery section over there where you can actually have a go at doing some archery. So you can see this is what a sharp arrow tip would have looked like. It's very pointy and sharp, but that would go on the end there in theory if you wanted to
Can I just
shoot
take it?
something with it. Or do you want a picture of it? Sorry, yeah, I can put it there for you.
Oh my god, it's heavy. Yeah.
Hello, brother.
So that could really hurt somebody.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, I've got goose feathers here. So these are goose feathers on my arrows.
And you know, when did they use all these arrows last time? What century? What decade?
Oh, I mean, you had a bit of a sort of slow shift from arrows to sort of firearms throughout the, I want to say throughout the like 15, 16, 1700s is when that transition would have happened, but it would have happened over quite a long while. So you did have actually a period where you had early firearms alongside arrows, because early firearms took a long time to load and weren't super reliable. So that, yeah.
And is that the real knife? Then what is this? This.
So this is my knife.
Okay.
So you see, I've got a leather sheath for it there, and then it is a sharp knife. So I use it for cutting food, for example, or for cutting my string when I'm making my arrows. That's what I use it for. And then I've got a pouch here in which I've got obviously the sharp arrow tip I showed you, and I've also got a spoon in there that I can use for eating soup or pottage, which is like a stew that we make on encampment.
Is that
I think
the
that's what one
spoon really the kind they use?
Yeah, they would have just had wooden spoons like this.
It is wooden.
You can see this is one that I made, which is why it's not as good, but it does the trick. It does work.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah, that's what.
What's that floor about?
Over there, actually. If you want to know about food, my colleague over there can tell you loads. Sorry, he's just eating.
I can also tell you.
Oh, yes, my colleague here can tell
Would you
you.
like to know?
Yeah.
What's that floor?
So we've got boiled eggs, marzipan.
Ah.
So, you know what, like, it's a
Made
mixture
the
of
traditional
almonds and
method,
sugar.
50-50 almond flour and brown sugar, and then rose water or orange water, depending on which batch you're taking from.
But it is authentic.
Do you want to know the calories?
And there is no Pepsi in this.
It's good to know, like, we had pita bread so many centuries back. Pita bread and hummus.
Is that a butter or cheese?
That is a soft cheese, authentic recipe.
Grapes!
Is it okay if I can record? Hi. That's for my YouTube channel.
Because I've had these for like 4 years. No, did you ever? I know they were sold to someone. I think one of them was Kira's.
What are you doing?
Cleaning. I spent probably about 30 minutes to an hour scrubbing all the burnt porridge out of the bottom of this. Where do I pour the water once I'm done?
Say mine, barely. This is my third year.
That's for my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So what is this? What is that?
we are leather workers. This, my friend Walter, is a cordwainer. They make shoes. I'm of an all-purpose leather worker. Specifically, I like to make belts.
Is that a real leather work?
Yes, this is a real piece of a belt which I designed using tooling, which is the method of, with a piece of cattle bone, like that, I would get it very sharp, wet the leather, and rub into the leather, making a lasting and pressed design.
How long it takes to make this shoes?
I'd say like a few hours usually of designing and tooling and double tooling, but it comes out to stuff like this, which is quite beautiful. I've also made a few other things, such as these knife sheaths, which, as you can see, has a beautiful zoomorphic design on it, with a bird, which is actually an extant find from our period, which we found through archaeological discovery, which is quite interesting. And then there's my friend Walter, who has many shoes and shoe lasts here. Yes.
Which shoes is ready, ready to wear?
Pardon?
Which one is the ready to wear? Is that the one?
I'm wearing it to partner right now. These are the shoes I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
Because they're really comfy.
So how do you measure the shoe size at that time?
Actually, I have a bit of string where I've got someone's measurements on them.
Oh.
So I've just got knots in at each point where I needed them. So that's the length around there.
Oh, so you find out the width and the length.
Yes, like that,
So
and then
rested haunted face.
that's the other stitch I need.
Yeah.
That's the other length I need, and then I just drew around his feet in order to
Please get some water.
work out the size that the soles needed to be. He's growing feet, so I added a bit more than I normally would. I'd normally go about there. Well, made them a bit
How long
bigger.
this shoes can run?
To make,
We're in the same class.
so this main stitch, when last time I timed it, it was about 2 hours per shoe, so 4 hours in total. Add to that the time it takes to design the shoe and sew this stitch and do all the other bits and pieces, and you're looking at least all day to make a pair of shoes. I'm not entirely certain. In some reproductions where people have worn them every single day, they've only lasted for about 3 months.
Which sounds about right.
Yeah.
But you would wear them until they fell apart, basically, because they're expensive to make shoes. You would wear them until you could tell where you were by the stones in your feet.
This one.
This is all leather.
Of
All
course.
leather. Several different types. So this is cow skin. This is a nice tough one. It's
This is
useful
some
for making
deer
boots
skin,
and
I
things.
believe.
Oh yes. This is calf skin. This would actually be the most common material for making shoes, but I've only just got this, so I haven't made any shoes out of it yet.
Yeah.
And this is goat skin, which is also used for making shoes. And
I might look into getting some goat skin at some point. It looks quite nice.
it is. It's nice to work with. I've got a little pouch out of goat skin there.
I've got some very supple cattle skin at home, which I'm going to make some pouches out of. And the tops of some shoes.
So here we have an array of items relating to medieval hunting. So we have an array of arrowheads, some of which would be used for hunting, some of them for war.
Is that the real one?
Which one?
Are they all real?
Yeah, they're all real. So these ones here have all been made by one of our blacksmiths based on original 12th century finds dug up by archaeologists. I am portraying a medieval huntsman, so I would be employed by one of our lords here today to sort of look after his lands and sort of hunt game on his behalf. So if he's sort of been off on campaign or whatever, and we hear that he's on his way back, I go out into the woods and sort of hunt animals to provide meat for his table. At the same time, my duties would include sort of generally going around his lands, making sure that sort of animals are staying within that park, and peasants like him are not coming in and trying to steal said animals.
Can you show any arrow which is ready to hit, it's fully prepared, or how do you?
So this is an arrow that's sort of ready to shoot, as it were. So this is medieval bow. I'm afraid I don't have a head. So this is known as a bodkin. It's designed for penetrating chainmail armour. So for instance, if you use something like this against the chainmail, it's not going to get that much penetration. However, if you use something like this, it's designed to find a single link and just push through. That's how much penetration it's getting without any kind of force behind it.
So this can kill somebody?
Yeah, these are designed for piercing armour.
Yeah. Quite deep.
Yeah.
And which century do you belong to?
We are portraying the 12th century, so the 1100s and the very start of the 13th century into the 1200s. The exact event that we are sort of intending to sort of portray here today is the Fourth Crusade, which is sort of right at the start of the 13th century. But the technology and the fashions are still more or less identical.
Okay, great.
Genuinely a lot.
It's awful, isn't it, to think we've gone a little bit backward.
It was all seasonal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I believe it was Henry IV who helped make it for the 5 day work. Very
Not very painful, chef.
They have. Aspirin is willow bark. You'd have a willow bark tea.
Pies of rich bread would be white bread made with wheat. And then there's barley. You can make bread out of barley. Primarily what they do with barley is making ale out of it. Ale was the thing that was drunk primarily throughout the day. Basically drinking ale instead of water, not because water was bad. Water was bad at the time. Would they have known that? Question mark. The reason why ale was drunk as much as it was just because throughout the year the food supply can always be a little iffy, and ale had a lot of calories in it. And so it was essentially used as just your liquid food for the day. So like essentially drink ale instead of water, primarily because you can drink it instead of food.
It's about 300 calories per pint, and your alcohol content is very low.
Yeah, it's
pushing 3%. Really stretched.
Yeah, so what most people would have been drinking throughout their day would have been 1-2%. Nothing's gonna happen with 1-2% to drink like water. That'll be fine. So that's the grains. For harvesting the grains, you've got bill hook. Bill hook is used for sort of chopping down branches on trees, things like chopping down branches on trees, sort of clearing a space, and then sickle for more sort of Well, have I got this one around? This is the more precise one,
Yes,
right?
so
Yeah,
that's for,
if
that's
you're...
explicitly
yes.
used
So
for...
this is for clearing, this is for sort of gathering. If you've got a place, if you've got some land with the crops you don't want on there, that you want gone, so you can put your own crops on there, Bill, if you've already planted your crops and you wanted to gather them, pick them up in your hand, use this.
And it gathers them because they're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Then you need one of these things. So this is a threshing flail. They're often a bit longer than this, but you would lay all of your grains out, all of the stalks with the seeds still on them on a blanket, and then you would,
without trying to hit someone behind you,
you'd beat the living daylights out of it essentially. So you keep hitting it, it separates all the seed heads, breaks open the shells, and then you do something called winnowing. A number of ways of doing it. Easiest way is if you've done it on a blanket, you and your mate hold on each side of the blanket and throw everything up in the air. And because the chaff, as it's called, all of the seed, all of the shells, all the bits are lighter, they get blown off on the wind, and the seeds, which is say your wheat and your rye and your barley, fall back down. And if you've it's where you get the phrase separation of the wheat from the chaff. And then that goes into your milling.
Sewing tunic I've been doing for a couple of years now, and it's going to have quite complex embroidery in it. And that'll be done in like a year. So
That's fair.
yeah.
I mean, you can keep hold of it, so cash in.
And I've got a very thick jumper on as well, so that'll keep the heat off.
That's the closest one here, where there's where the person is with the red dress.
What's your role?
Pardon?
What's your role?
Soldier, mercenary.
Do you want to if I can record?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, go for it.
That's for my YouTube channel.
Yeah, no problem. So obviously we're 12th century Norman, so we come down to put on a big display. We've got lots of different types of weapons, shields, we've got Byzantine armour, Norman armour, and we do have the church and crusaders here around as well.
So generally the one soldiers during that time, how much weight he was carrying and going for a war?
I'm not 100% sure.
But it looks to me very heavy. This looks to me quite heavy. But that's fine if you don't know, that's fine. That's just
That one is a bit
because that's quite a heavy stuff, you know that.
Yeah, then obviously as a mercenary I had a contract, so I could either get paid wages or like take some of the loot and things like that.
Can I see the weapons they use?
Yeah, of course you can.
I really need to get a
So here's just a basic sword, so if you like to hold it, feel free.
That's not the real one.
Oh, it isn't real. This is exactly the type that we used back then. So everything here is as it was back then, apart from everything is blunted.
Okay, because that time they keep it quite sharp.
Oh yeah, been very sharp back then, yeah.
Blade, steel blade.
Yeah, but this is the same style they have had back then, all the way from the pummel to the crossguard and to the length and style of the blades.
What I was thinking of doing is if I get
So our forearms, so we got this is called the crescent axe. So this was made for war, so you wouldn't use it for chopping trees down. This would be used by heavy infantrymen, mercenaries and soldiers, as like anti-cavalry, and to punch holes in the line. Because you'd have some big guy like this, chopping down like that, or starting that way, coming right up and through, professional axemen. So this was a very deadly weapon of war.
What was the name of the movie we saw? The very famous movie.
Oh, there's many famous movies with axes, there's quite a few of them around.
Yeah. So that was the actual height that they used.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same height, everything as it were back then. And we've got this as falchard. This is another heavy infantryman weapon. This was used by mercenaries and bodyguards for lords and several knights. This was used in close quarters, going through cities, also on horseback. It's a very choppy weapon. You'll just completely go through the cities, just brutally chopping your way through pretty much. And same on horseback, swash, pretty much like that. Where you'd have big 6 foot built guys like that, ready to go. So no one's going to come with someone that's swinging this around like this, pretty much. So yeah, very interesting time, very brutal time as well.
Oh yeah, that's
And
quite
then the
big.
bulk of the army was fought by spears because they're very cheap to make, very effective, and the further the way off from me, the better. So I can keep someone about 10 foot away, whereas if someone...
Is that the one they use on with the elephant or horse?
The one use this one on the horse. Something like this. This is a one-handed spear, so this is a lance. But if you use this on horseback, and you'll have normal infantrymen with one of these and a shield. So and then this was a two-handed weapon. So the bulk of the armies were fought with these because reach and distance is key. And they're very cheap to make and very effective.
Yeah.
Where we used to make coins, so we haven't got that. Jake is interested in your stump.
It's a very good stump, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all mine.
He's also got a
How do they make it sharp, all these blades?
Use like grinding stones and things like that to make him sharp. You know, when you see the big wheel turning round, the smith will be on there, going from side to side and pulling the stones.
So is he the way making that happen?
No, he makes coins.
Oh,
That's the money. This is for money, eh? So this is like a royal mint.
Yeah.
So he was made coins for the king. From the treasurer. Sure.
Yeah, only a moment.
It's something I would do.
A simple plain coin, nothing on either side. Here is the face of the mint, and all we do is line up our coin very carefully. There's the other side. And with one wave of the magic hammer, we have a coin. Now I can hit it twice because I hit it super light, so I'm just warming up. We have a few million of these to get through, so that was a good one. And there's a coin.
Yeah. So the stamp is same. You know, the stamp they use on the coin.
Yeah, this is the stamp on the coin.
So what is the value of that stamp, you know, the coin?
This is 1 silver penny, which shows that it is 1/120th of a pound of silver. Because 1 pound of silver will make 10 shillings, 12 pennies in a shilling, 120. It's also where we get the word pound from in Great British pound, because the money originated from a pound of silver, which would make 120 of these. And this lovely rough mercenary who's hired to look after me for today, he will probably get maybe about 5 or 6 of these a week if he behaves himself and looks after me.
5 or 6 a week.
5 or 6 of these a week, that's about a week's wage for a nice mercenary.
That's the average salary.
Yes, a peasant working in the fields might get 1 or 2 a week, but often in the outer reaches of the rural areas, they would still be trading mostly. This is very, very useful for a couple of people. Merchants, travelling a lot, don't want to shift all their bartering goods. I sell you this lovely metal plated leg armour and you give me 3 sheep and then I've got to travel across the sea. I don't really want to travel with the sheep.
Yeah.
I'd rather they take coin with me.
Yeah.
And mercenary walking up and down again, he doesn't want to carry all his bushels of apples with him as payment.
Can you survive in that salary with your family?
Yes, very easily.
Easily?
Yes. You'd be very easily looked after. It's a pretty good wage. They would also fight. They would get a portion of the loot if they won. They gather up all the good goods.
How much portion? 10%? 5%?
It depends, but yeah, about 10% or so. Yeah, about 10%.
That's a good money.
They would get a share of the loot depending on it, and it would get distributed downwards to everyone. And they would gather all the stuff up. Obviously, I imagine if they find a couple of coins in someone, that gets pocketed, but all the heavy armour and all the swords would all get gathered up, and then they would be...
So all the coins made by the metal, you know, the either silver or gold?
Always silver.
Silver.
Pretty much for our period in England. There was some gold on the continent, but in England for most of our period, for a couple hundred years, it was even a halfpenny. It was just this 1 penny. And sometimes they would cut it in half along the cross.
And it's always the same size?
Always the same size, because this is 1/120th of a pound of silver. So it looks like this and it weighs like this, and you could travel everywhere.
Today it looks like a pence.
It does look like a penny today, which is also why it's called a penny. It's the silver short cross penny.
Yeah.
You'll also notice that the edge doesn't touch the end. It stops in the middle-ish. That's why it's called a short cross penny.
Yeah.
A bit before our time and a bit after the time, there is a long penny. So it's a nice little way to differentiate it. And I can also point out there's actually loads of detail on this coin.
Yeah.
So, he's got a crown at the top.
Yeah.
He's got a little beard. He's got little tufts on the side of his face.
Yeah.
And that little line there is his sceptre, which shows that he's the king. So there's lots of detail packed in here. And there's also writing around it.
Yeah.
And it says Rex, which means king. So we all know that this is Henry Rex, King Henry. And it was King Henry II. And on the back, there's even more writing.
Yeah, he didn't like it. He didn't like it at all. Yeah.
Right, Stephen! How many minutes? Training in the militia stay as well. Training in the militia stay.
Constantinopolis!
Constantinople!
And you know, like any good army, you have to repossess a few things, take slaves, finances, and today, comparing the Crusader army built up, comparing it to the Byzantium army. So, first and foremost, we'll start with the better army, the Crusaders. To introduce the Holy Orders, before I explain who we brought along with us in our army. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, we'll try that again. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When you were quiet then, I did have a second of, is it afternoon or morning? Because obviously I haven't got a watch on me, but I'm just going to go, you didn't hear me the first time. So, good afternoon, welcome to Ormskirk. Briefly going to hand over to my colleagues, but to explain the Crusader mindset to you briefly, ladies and gentlemen. It seems a very strange concept that particularly the Holy Orders, monks, men of God, might take the sword and take to the field. But this is very much seen as part of their religious devotion, that they're defending the battlements of Christendom, that they are defending Christian lands and lives from other forces. As for why other people might take to the field as Crusaders, why they might join armed pilgrimages and partake in what was known as the work of the cross. This could be for a variety of different people. Some were seeking genuine salvation, others were seeking atonement for sins, yet others were looking for prosperity as part of this religious calling. We know that the Eastern empires were rich provinces, as they were in the Roman era. And very much again, you have people who wanted to partake in that and better their lives. And this meant you had people from all social stratas, from the very high to the very low. Kings took the cross. We've all heard of Richard the Lionheart going on crusade. But there were also forces of armed pilgrims that would partake in this as well. I hope that gives you a little context into the mindset of our Crusader army on my left, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll hand over to one of my colleagues now to explain the arms and armour of these men. Now, fast like army stand. Go on, get up, you've gone forward. Hold it! Ha! Ah! First off, CPF, first start. Quiet! Three! Quiet! Turn it! A gauche! A gauche! Turn it, the line! Monsieur! The line, monsieur! Right! Have a forward line! Facing that way! Gone! Turn it! Come on! Now, as part of this Crusader army, us Normans have a little bit of a language barrier. Our levies are Saxon and speak as such, whereas I myself am a Norman who speaks a different, well, basically Norman, isn't it? Norman French. Norman French. So we do have a little bit of translation needed by our middle tiers of society. Step forward our levies first. Bring over some of those. What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, these are your peasants, your everymen. These are the common men of England who've been pressed into service by their local lord. Observe, we've got maybe a helmet, or no, not in this case. You've got very little body armour. If you're lucky, they will have lance, and they will have what we call a soldier's kite, your Norman kite shield. You'll notice it's different from the shields over there. These are your very, very simply armoured men that are fighting. You've got any short arms. Here we are. We've got very, very simple club. It's a stick with some studs in it. You can't really get much simpler. We've also got a knife, a tool knife, taken from a farm back home most likely, and repurposed and used for war. These are not wealthy men, these are not well-armed men, but they're here at the behest of their local lord. We've also got, slightly more menacing looking, your occasional chopping axe. Any sort of tool axe, put on a long haft and repurposed for war. But again, a lot of these weapons are repurposed or very, very simple. These are not your pinnacle of arms and armour for the period. Thank you, levies. Now, going on to what should be the majority of our army, mercenaries. Bit for me, avant. Forward! Now, our mercenaries have a little bit more protection. You swing round around the line so everyone can see you on all different sides of the arena. So just do a lap around. Now, our mercenaries, you see, have chainmail. This is to protect them against slashing and stabbing attacks. If I bring up one of my squires just so I can give an example of it work. This is designed to protect against any slashes and some stabbing damage. The gambeson underneath is to protect against maces or any other blunt weapons like these levies choose to bring along on crusade. Now, these men are more well trained. They are fighters by profession. We are paying them to do their job and to do it well. And the Crusader army was predominantly mercenaries and nobility. So if you take a step back, the nobility, now you can see the armour and arms of these men is far beyond that of the levies. They have long shirts protected down to their knees, to their palms. Hell, my squire here even has what's nearly seen as a faceplate. He's there to protect his face in case any blows came in. Now, you'll also see these flat top shields. Why might they have flat tops instead of round tops? Any ideas? Go on, there must be one of you who has an idea. No? In the back there. Go on. Yeah, in the white shirt. So, possibly, but what have they got? 100%, absolutely every single one of them has a faceplate or nasal which protects their face better than some of the open helms that you might see. And in doing so, with the point as well around their neck, it protects their face a little bit more, and they think, you know what, we can get away with a little less. So this then protects the shoulders better and keeps them at the top of the expectations of society. Now unfortunately we don't have any knights in the lineup today, as I chose not to armour up. But you'd see them in similar armaments, but with leg armour, faceplate helmets, surcoats. These men are the pinnacle of Norman and Crusader armaments at the time. And you'll see our army, in this case, is predominantly hired. It's hired mercenaries or raise levies who were brought along and forced onto the crusade. If you compare this with Byzantium, they take a lot of inspiration from the old Roman Empire. So, you want to hand over nice and quick?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen! Oh, come on, you can do better than that! Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen!
Good afternoon!
Welcome to Anatolia, years 1204. My name's Alexios. I'm an officer coming along to help explain the arms and armour of the Greek army. Unlike the Crusader rabble over there, we are a professional standing army. These soldiers are paid in land to serve the Byzantine Empire.
Nema! Medimo! Syncrato! Medimo! Let's show this wonderful audience how a professional army looks. Turn and face your adoring crowd. Medimo! Syncrato!
So, the Byzantine army had its own state troops. They also made extensive use of mercenaries. We'll talk about those first. We have a Pechenek. It's a horse archer, now fighting on foot, but normally he rides on horse, shooting arrows at the enemy from a distance, quite lightly armoured, still carries a spear and a sword. The shield, which is round, and the Eastern style lenticular bow. Please return to the ranks. I have one of my fellow countrymen, an Armenian cavalryman. These either fight like Western knights with chainmail or with the Byzantine style lamellar armour made from thousands of interlocking plates which provide great protection. This you'll see more in the east than you do in the west. Then we have our more professional soldiers, you there with the long spear, step out. The long spear we call a macron, used in two hands, fight 2-3 ranks deep, form an impenetrable wall of spears to fight the enemy with. We have any Varangi. The Varangian Guard have all stayed at home, it seems.
The Emperor is not here. Why would the Emperor bother coming out just yet?
Explain who you are.
I am Alexios, and I am an officer of this mighty Roman army. I hold the title Centurios. This is Greek. You have heard the word centurion, yes? Yes. I am a mighty, more modern, medieval centurion. Centurios, the finest officer in the finest army in all of the known world.
Very good. Let's talk about some of the weapons. We've already discussed the armour. You'll see several of us wielding curved swords. Do not make the jump from Skyrim. These are designed to be used from horseback. To cut, you can thrust with them, but they're primarily cutting weapons. Spears, used by all armies, they're the same as the Franks. In addition, curved axes with a hammer, very versatile weapons. And pull it out. Flanged maces. Crusaders like these, they stole them from us. So we have our own ways of killing the enemy. You'll also notice that our shields are round, and a little difference. This is a holdover to the old Greek shields that the hoplites used. Have round shields down there as well, in addition to some smaller kite shields than the Normans are fighting with. So this has provided a rough guide to Byzantine weapons and armour. Our army is better trained than theirs, it's better led, and it's better equipped. So who wants to see us do some fighting? Yeah! Very well. Crusaders, are you ready to...
a wonderful professional. My mighty army.
Steve. First blood, now into it. Rinse and repeat. No tracking back. First blood, into
That's enough.
Standing! Your soldiers of Byzantium! Fight like it! Synchrozo!
There's a racist in the world!
Nice one! Get one step back! Soldiers of Byzantium, you disgrace me! Get off! You have dishonored the Emperor! Armenia! Straight this line up! On your feet! If you care to stand... Ladies and gentlemen! Shut up! Your weapons! Shut up! I give you your first winner! The Man of the Crusade! A pitiful display by the Man of Byzantium, if I say so myself! I say we let the try win back their honor! Gentlemen alive! The army of Belisarius! So, these tragic barbarians!
In line with me! Forward!
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the winners of the second fundamental Byzantium!
Ladies and gentlemen, that's one for each side. I think a third fight's in order. What do you think?
Well done! More of that!
Asco, you make some noise for them as they get ready!
Oh, fellas, they don't know these started.
honest history and unaffected will. Until then, thank you for watching and enjoy your time here. Thank
Good at looking like that. I don't think I could. This is, so for each one of these rings, you've got to put a little hammer, well, climbing line. Even before that, we've got a flat point to put in it. Then on that flat point, you put a hole through it, and then you rivet. So it's a lot of extra work. But again, people who are getting that kind of chainmail again.
So you can imagine these are almost speeding the lines. You've got chainmail underneath, and it goes across the mount.
Sorry, could you say that again? So,
Feel the weight of it.
I hope you get it.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm alright, how are you doing?
Can I record it? Is it okay?
Sure.
That's my YouTube channel. What's that? Is that chess game?
This is not chess, this is called Tafel, T-A-F-L. Now, that means table in Saxon, I think, or the older language, and it basically just means, essentially, it's a board game, and it might as well be called board game. So they just had the equipment, and there's all sorts of variations on the rules. A common thread with this set of table equipment is that this tall one is trying to get into one of the corners to escape the field, and all these black ones are just trying to stop him from doing that. They do that by surrounding him on all sides, like so. But also, like if he's on the edge, then it's just 3 sides. And only this piece can go on here, so like that would count as a capture as well, because that's might as well be solid object for them. So you just take turns. All of the pieces move the way a castle does in chess.
Yeah.
So this guy can go all the way over there, but that's a bad idea because then he'll get sandwiched and taken. So you've got to be very careful about that. Because of that, going into an adjacent space is kind of dangerous. Now here's okay, because the white piece can't really get anywhere. This move is dangerous because it's gone next to him, so that guy could contribute to a taking. This guy can slide in, and then he's gone. So the game ends up being about positioning and setting traps. And because this guy's got to get to the outside, if you end up with your black pieces like this, and then your king ends up throughout the course of the game, he ends up going there, you still need another move to make it to the winning position. So if you've got these 2 pieces either side, this is a death trap, because coming in here means that now he's gone. He's surrounded. So it's one of these things where you can't really tell how well it's going. It's all about...
How do you decide which one is winner or loser?
It's all about whether this guy leaves the board. So if he gets to one of these corners, then he wins.
Game over. Okay.
And if he doesn't, because he gets captured, then the attackers win. And there's a lot of variations to rules about and positioning, like how you start up and stuff. This is the most common set of rules that we have any evidence for.
What's that?
These are just some crossbow bolts that I have on the table here.
Okay. How long it takes to complete one game?
Or to even know how to do it yourself?
Well,
average time between soldiers.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that can last hours. It can last hours. It might be 20 minutes. Depends how.
What do you call them? The game. What's the name of the game?
This is Tafel. T-A-F-L.
TEFL.
Yeah, there's apps on your phone you could play it.
Are there any rules in this that they can go 2 steps forward or like 4 steps forward? Are there any rules?
No, all of the pieces move in the same way. So all of them move just as far as they like in one direction and in one movement.
Yeah.
So this guy can go there, he can just go there or there or there, he can go anywhere he likes. As long as he's not interrupted and it's a straight line, that's one move.
Excellent. Oh, that's fine.
John's got donkeys first.
Good afternoon!
Good afternoon.
Monday. Welcome to Hurried Histories. Today we'll be talking through a little bit of the history of what we call the Angevin Empire in a piece we like to call the Devil's Brew. So, it's the 1050s. King Stephen and the Empress Matilda are fighting for control over England because Stephen thinks he can do a better job and nobody really likes the idea of Matilda running things. After over a decade of conflict, Stephen gives way to Matilda's son Henry, who will be known as Henry II. Now, Henry, while being King of England, also is Duke of Normandy, which means that he pays homage to the King of France. Or at least he would, but he's not particularly keen on that idea because he's King of England. Why should I pay homage to the King of France? Also, the King of England owns more of France than the French actually do. Not least of all because Henry has recently got married to Eleanor of Aquitaine. Which is awkward for a number of reasons, mostly because she used to be married to him, the King of France. The marriage had been annulled because unfortunately they couldn't have any male heirs. Henry and Eleanor, on the other hand, have 4 sons. First we have Henry, later to be known as Henry the Young King. We'll explain why later. Richard, known commonly as Richard the Lionheart, favourite of his mother. John. Yeah, that's the reaction we usually get. John, favourite of his father. Papa. And Geoffrey, who was just what's that?
Yeah,
who was just sort of there. Now, Henry II is a good military leader, skilled in combat, fought many battles, fought many tournaments. But as an administrator, not exactly the strongest when it came to administrative qualities. The first has to do with his attempts to control the church. Henry had decided that the best way to gain further control over the church in England was to get his old drinking buddy, Thomas Becket, and make him Archbishop of Canterbury. Henry thinks, great, my buddy's in charge of the Church of England, I can keep him in line and everything's lovely. Except that Thomas does something that nobody, including Henry, actually expects. He takes his job seriously.
This is not what we agreed, monsieur.
Thomas, now fully wanting to maintain the control of the church in itself, ends up butting heads quite a lot with Henry over the next few years. Eventually, Henry, quite frustrated with this, utters the line that will be, unfortunately, Thomas Becket's undoing.
Won't somebody rid me of this turbulent priest?
Which wouldn't be too bad, except that a bunch of his knights seem to have heard this, and in a zeal of support for Henry, go to Canterbury, break into the cathedral, and murder Thomas Becket at the altar. Yes, Boo, quite right. Now, whilst Thomas Becket wasn't the most popular man when he was alive, his death is a peon nightmare for Henry. He's loathed across Europe, vilified by many, and in order to set things right, the knights have to go off on crusade, and Henry has to walk to Canterbury barefoot as recompense. The second problem with his administration has to do with his eldest son, Henry. Now, Henry at this point is young, dynamic, popular amongst the people, and Henry II gets the idea to utilise this popularity by making him co-king. Two King Henrys at the same time. You have Henry II and Henry the Young King. This creates a few administrative problems, seeing as you don't know which Henry you're actually talking to when you mention King Henry, but also Henry the Young King gets it in his head that he can actually do the job better. So, he rises up in rebellion with support from his mother and from his brothers Richard and Geoffrey. John at this point is too young to get involved in rebellion, he's just a little baby. Now the brothers rise up in rebellion, but Henry II is still a keen military mind and gives his sons a right good thrashing. And as a result of supporting them, he has Eleanor locked up, moved to Henry. Henry the Young King and Geoffrey take a moment to think about their plan and decide that the best thing to do at this point is to rise up in rebellion for a second time. Now, this again fails, partly because again it's Henry II, shrewd military leader, but also Henry the Young King and Geoffrey both die. Geoffrey dying by getting off of his horse and being dragged 4 miles, and Henry the Young King possibly dying of dysentery. Watch for a theme. So now, Richard is next in line. And Richard takes a moment, looks at the rebellions of his 2 less successful and older brothers, and decides that the best thing to do in this situation is to rebel yet again. This time, however, he has the support of his brother John. Now Henry, upon hearing that his youngest and his favourite son John has risen up in rebellion against him, promptly dies of a broken heart. Or probably more likely dysentery. So now, Richard is king. Crusader extraordinaire, fantastic knight, best of English kings, right? Wrong. Richard, not particularly fond of England or the English. He spends about 6 months of his reign here, doesn't speak the language, and was quoted as saying that he would sell off London to the highest bidder. And he needs the money. Like many men prone to acts of tremendous violence, Richard decides he wants to go on crusade, but he's not going to go on his own. On the team with him is Philip, the King of France.
Mon ami! Crusade!
His very good friend, and Leopold, the Duke of Austria.
Guten Tag, mein lieber Herr! Sehr gut!
Keep an eye out for Leopold, he becomes important later. Now, as you can imagine, when you go on crusade with many rulers all sat at the top co-managing things, egos are going to get in the way. And before too long, Richard and Philip have a falling out, and Philip goes home to France in a huff.
I am in charge here.
So now, Richard is in charge of the Third Crusade. Leads campaigns in Accra and towards the Holy Land of Jerusalem. Eventually reaching a stalemate and truce with Saladin, and decides peace is the answer and heads on home. But Richard's made a few enemies along the way. Remember our friend Leopold? Well, during the siege of Accra, Richard noticed that Leopold's banner was higher than his. And as a duke versus a king, that simply won't do. So Richard takes Leopold's banner, throws it from the battlements, and maybe wheezes on it. We're not entirely certain. Leopold, as you can imagine, not best pleased. Richard realised he might have a difficult time getting through Austria, decides to sneak through in disguise, and is almost immediately caught. Upon Richard's capture, Leopold decides that the appropriate ransom is 3 times the national income. Luckily for him, or unluckily rather, is that the one in charge of England right now is John. And John rather likes the idea of Richard being locked up because he and Philip conspire together to keep Richard in prison. Luckily for Richard, Eleanor of Aquitaine is still on side. Where's my boy? In the space of just about a year or so, she raises the money together and gets Richard free. Philip, when he hears the news that Richard is loose, sends a letter to John saying, "Look to yourself, the devil is loose. He is in deep trouble." Richard gets home after a year of imprisonment and forgives his brother. Yeah, forgives him. Not quite what we were expecting, but you know, c'est la vie. Richard now has a new problem. His country is completely broke. So he decides to go campaigning in France. Whilst besieging a relatively undefended castle, he decides to patrol the battlements with no armour on, and catches the sight of a chef deflecting crossbow bolts with a pan, which he finds rather amusing. Whilst finding that rather amusing, he fails to notice a small boy with a crossbow who shoots him in the collarbone. Richard takes a total of 3 days to die from gangrene, during which time his forces take the castle, capture the young boy in question, and Richard promptly forgives him. Gives him a bag of gold and sends him on his way, and quickly snuffs it. His knights, being less than generous, as soon as Richard's kicked the bucket, take the young boy and murder him. And now Richard is dead and John is King of England. Or so he would be. Remember Geoffrey? Well, Geoffrey has a son, Arthur of Brittany, a boy of 12 who is the next in line. And John has him killed. Maybe. There's a lot of rumour about that. John definitely didn't have a 12-year-old boy murdered so that he could be king. So now, John, the runt of the litter, gets what he wanted this whole time and gets to be King of England. And he runs the country into the ground. He loses all the lands in France owned by his father, ends up getting in a tiff with the Pope. Hey, I'm at the pub now! Hey, now. And taxes this country so much that the northern barons rise up in rebellion against him. Now, John is a great many things, but not a strategic genius. And after fighting with his barons, realises he's not going to win this. So, in an attempt to pacify his nobility, signs an important document called the Magna Carta. Magna Carta curtails his powers and gives some back to the nobility. The barons, satisfied with that result, decide to go home. However, in a move typical of King John, as soon as their backs are turned, goes to the Pope, gets the document annulled, it's annulled, and goes back to his old habits. The barons at this point are absolutely fuming. So fuming that when they rise to rebellion again, they turn to the King of France for help. So, John's got the barons from the north working in on one side, the French coming in from the other, and he's stuck quite literally between a rock and a hard place. Luckily, this won't last for long, as John's love of fruit tends to catch up with him. In a move that quite literally runs in the family, John goes to Newark and, you guessed it, dies of dysentery. The barons, now satisfied by John's death, rally behind his son Henry and drive the French king out of France once and for all. Henry is now king with the barons keeping control, and thus at that point ends not just the Angevin Empire but also the tale of the Devil's Brood. We are Historia Normannis. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to get you to the stage where you and him can suggest champions fight, yeah? Does
I'll be the Millie Mountain on the
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen! Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen! If you'll allow me, let me take you back to 1204, the Fourth Crusade. Crusaders needed to go to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem. Unfortunately, they must have gotten a bit lost. They find themselves in Byzantium. Half the men they expected, and far, far less funds than they were hoping for. To reach the Holy Land, they had to make ships, to hire sacred ships, transport ships as well. But unfortunately, they can't pay for these ships. So what are they to do? Well, what they end up doing is taking an offer from the nephew of the Emperor of Constantinople. What he suggests, sack the city, and then hopes he will take it Uncle's place instead. The Venetians, the main opponent in a trade war of the Mediterranean, more than happy to oblige. What we have here is a small force coming up the coast near Constantinople. They are met by a small contingent of forces set to defend their homes. The leaders of these armies will speak to one another, hopefully to find a peaceful resolution.
You Western barbarian, back to your land! Are you bored of pillaging your own country but not to mine?
No, we are on our way to the Holy Land, on crusade.
Mercenaries! Mercenaries from not of you! You come here taking gold when you should have been here fighting for God. Instead of going to the other side and fight the Saracens, you fight us.
Crusade. How else will we get to the Holy Land?
It seems diplomacy is wasted on barbarians like you. I suggest you fight your best Western dogs against my glorious Imperial soldiers.
Very well. Very well. We will
Ladies,
see how this goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, they have opted to save their men from war. They are bringing their dead chests forward to resolve this themselves. Give these men a round of applause!
In the name of God, how many Christians did you kill? One more!
Miss Robert, where's the commander?
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your winners, the Crusaders! Financially, with men, it was done for. Many years later, Constantinople would be taken by a different force. Many would die, but hopefully, no one here has actually died here. Can you please give a round of applause as I ask the men to rise?
Robert, carry on. Yeah, fine.
All right. Romans! Syncrator!
Byzantium, take a lap and leave, yeah?
Romans! Massimu! Rosenbrot!
No leaving it.
Lord Basilius!